Hey, welcome to Night Convos. It's Lovey here. You know, we really just do not understand why Gypsy insists on continuing to bash her own mother, continuing to try and spread this false narrative. Just stop already, Gypsy. Was literally jabbing your mother in her own back and almost severing her head off not enough for you, Gypsy? Really? Why do you continue to lie about everything we can clearly read in your medical documents? Those of us who choose not to be willfully ignorant or know what we're looking at can see that you absolutely needed the few procedures you had to have done. We're going to look at a couple of Gypsy's recent comments, a video clip, and a couple of other things. We want to know what you think after seeing everything, though. Real quick, thank you so much to all of our channel members. Hubby and I both truly appreciate you so much. And to all of our subscribers, thank you so much for being a part of our family and channel here. We are honestly so grateful for every single one of you. We truly are. And if you're not already, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, sharing, hitting the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our videos. And please leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below about everything we talk about. And we'll be conversating with you like always. And we would greatly appreciate it so much. Gypsy's BFF Bree even said this the other day on the live of her talking that we posted. She was speaking with a quote anti-Gypsy person. And the person kept saying Gypsy really was sick growing up, but couldn't really give good examples. When a lot of people hear the word sick, they think like cough, sore throat type of quote, sick. They don't really think of illnesses like what Gypsy had, with her needing a wheelchair sometimes, failure to thrive, also having to have a feeding tube, bad eyesight, some loss of hearing, and other illnesses you may not be able to physically see. If Gypsy was never sick as a child, the way her BFF Bree was saying, then doesn't that completely throw out the MSBP, the Munchausen syndrome by proxy? Of course it does, because a person who has this makes their child sick for the attention. Therefore, wouldn't Gypsy and her followers be saying Gypsy was a quote sick, coughing, fever having, vomiting, you get the point, type of sick child who would get better and then be sick again over and over from her mother making her sick, not teaching her to lie about symptoms? Seriously, think about that as we go over a few things. So let's just get this one out of the way now, the muscle biopsy. I would say you can blame yourself for that one because you were the one telling your mom and the doctor that you couldn't feel or move your legs, Gypsy. And when they can clearly see you have muscle tone and should not have any problems walking or standing, or that you shouldn't have any problems feeling your legs, then they're going to have to do a biopsy, which is when they take a sample, a piece of whatever it is they need to study and look at. The truth is, though, you couldn't stand or walk around for real long periods of time, isn't it, Gypsy? So you did need the wheelchair some of the time. Matter of fact, you've said you still have that problem to this day, where you can't stand or walk for real long periods of time. So let's look at some of your comments and break them down. But do y'all remember her saying that when she was pregnant and walking around the mall, she couldn't walk around for a long period of time without having to sit for like 20 or 30 minutes, something like that? So Gypsy's been hopping around all over TikTok on different creators' pages, leaving comments similar to this right here. This one, she left a long comment and went into further detail, I guess you could say. So Gypsy wrote, so first, and she's replying to someone. I don't know if she's replying to the video that she was commenting on or if she was commenting to someone else, but I think she was commenting to someone else in the comment section. So Gypsy said, so first, of course, I would take my child to the doctor if she has a symptom. Now, with that said, if the symptoms I quote having was real, that would be a good point. However, the symptoms were false. Okay, that first sentence right there takes us back to what I was saying at the beginning. So Gypsy just told us that the symptoms she was having or said that she had when she was growing up and she was oh so abused, were false. Well, someone that had Munchausen syndrome by proxy or factitious disorder imposed on another is a mental health disorder where a caregiver, a parent, fabricates or induces illness in a person under their care, typically a child, in order to gain attention and sympathy for themselves. The diagnosis is applied to the perpetrator, not the victim. But it is where they make a child, typically a child, sick. They will let them get better, nurse them back to health, and then make them sick again or ill again so that they can continue to get attention and sympathy. It's something they're addicted to. It's like a rug, and they need it. So they need that attention. They need that sympathy. So they will make their child sick, get attention from it, then get the attention from making their child better. And people saying, oh, I'm so glad that your child's so much better now. And then they'll make their child sick again. Oh, I'm so sorry that they're going through that and they're sick again. They need that. They feed off of it. It's a mental illness. In our opinion, we think that Gypsy had factitious disorder imposed on oneself, where she was doing this to herself. She was making up these symptoms, these problems, because she is the one that fed off of the attention and wanted the attention from it. So like I said at the very beginning, wouldn't Gypsy and her followers be saying Gypsy was a, quote, coughing, fever having, vomiting, whatever, sick child, or a child even with illnesses that you couldn't see? Regardless, wouldn't they say that Gypsy was a sick child instead of saying Gypsy was never sick, who would get better and then be sick again over and over? Because people who suffer or people who are a victim of someone with factitious disorder imposed on another actually do get sick. They actually have real things wrong with them. They don't just lie about the symptoms. They aren't just taught to go to the doctor and lie about symptoms. So that knocks that out, Gypsy. Then she says, the removal of my salivary glands, for example. My mother created the symptom by putting the numbing cream. Y'all, it is hard to read her writing, I swear. The removal of my salivary glands, for example. My mother created the symptom by putting the numbing cream. Okay, so to answer your question, no, the doctor who performed the surgery did not test to make sure it was an accurate diagnosis. So I can sue that doctor based on that alone. So that knocks that surgery off as necessary. Now let's move on to other things. I remember tests on my kidneys as a young child. My mother would always come into the restroom for when they needed a urine specimen. I remember my mother bringing a safety pin that was pinned to her shirt, and after I would pee in the cup, she would prick her finger and drop a few drops of blood into my urine. then claimed I had blood in my urine due to issues with, I don't know what she was trying to say there. Oh, sorry, it cuts off and then moves it over here. But due to issues with, and then it picks it up right here above the highlighted line, due to issues with my kidneys. Okay, again, this is another example of her making a false symptom. Both examples, she did something to intervene to create the problem for a diagnosis. Again, now we can remove that as necessary. The feeding tube wasn't placed until age 8, I believe. So before the age of 8, I was eating crab and gumbo, fries, and nuggets from McDonald's. There were no real signs of issues eating, so that knocks that off the table as necessary. As for me playing in the home movie, I was like 5 or 6. I was a child and behaved as one. Okay, well, let's break this down a little bit. So Gypsy said that the removal of her salivary glands, for example, her mother created the symptom by putting numbing cream. And then she just ends the sentence there. Okay, and then she says, so that knocks that surgery off the table, and I can sue that doctor for malpractice. Gypsy, it's really not that hard to understand. You had what is called a barium swallow test done. Okay? She seems to understand that, so I figured why not give it a try. Which means, Gypsy, they gave you several different consistencies of food and liquid to see what you could swallow. Your mother could not have interfered with that. It was done while you were at the hospital with the doctors and nurses watching. You were given things from water to thicker liquids with the consistency of maybe like a thin honey, for example, to see what you could swallow. Okay, can y'all see these like pinkish colored, things right here on the picture? All of these are salivary glands. So you have these salivary glands. Now in this picture, they are pointing out a salivary gland stone, but just try to ignore that because that's not what we're talking about. That's like just a little stone that can form and gets stuck there in the salivary gland. Anyway, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the salivary glands themselves. We know that only two of Gypsy's salivary glands were removed. She was also given different foods for the same reason, to see what she could swallow and chew, from pureed foods up to like a cracker, for example, as well as foods that are more chewy. I am so sorry I got tongue-tied. And foods that are more chewy, like a chicken nugget. And notice in her comment she said French fries and nuggets and gumbo and crab. She was eating all this. Yet she will not eat those things to this day. Do y'all notice that? She won't eat crab. She says she doesn't eat stuff like that. When Ken took her to the restaurant, we could see where she was using a knife and fork to cut something small, a small bite of food, into smaller bites of food. And she will take small sips of whatever she's drinking, water or whatever it may be. She will take small sips of fluid in at a time, small tiny bites of food, and chew them up before swallowing them. So there's different barium swallow tests that they can do. But on Gypsy, they did a modified barium swallow. And that's where they give you the different types of food. They watch you eat it. They see what you can handle and chew and swallow, all of that. Gypsy was spitting most everything out. She couldn't chew it. She was having problems. Remember our previous video, where we showed y'all that woman's video that we went over, and we also spoke about in that same video, we spoke about how Gypsy was underweight. She was the height and weight of a 7-year-old. when she was 13, almost 14 years old. And we went over a different medical document in that video to show that Gypsy did need the feeding tube. She could not swallow. She could not chew many types of foods. So much so that she was at the height and weight of a 7-year-old when she should have been double that. They still tried other things before putting a feeding tube in. They used the Botox injections on you. Those helped slightly, but not enough for you to eat and drink. Right, Gypsy? You also have a high palate, Gypsy, which is like the roof of your mouth, basically. She has it's high and arched in Gypsy's mouth, and still is to this day. But we'll get into that more in just a second. But guess what, Gypsy? You had to see a team of doctors before they would place a feeding tube. You had to see a speech and language pathologist, speech therapist, a gastroenterologist, and a dietitian, even the social worker that you had to help coordinate everything before a feeding tube would even be thought of being placed. All of which we can see in your medical records, who work together to determine the best plan of action with what has already been tried along with your test result. They all have to agree and sign off on a feeding tube being placed. So your mom could not have interfered with that, Gypsy. Okay, look at this part of one of the medical documents and where we have it highlighted in purple. So they're talking about her hearing is intact bilaterally. The uvula, the dangly thing in the back of your throat, is midline. And it says, highlighted in purple right there, the palate elevates symmetrically, meaning evenly. Her palate, so one side of the roof of her mouth, and they measure the hard palate and the soft palate. And you can see here where the hard palate is, the soft palate, and the uvula. But Gypsy's is arched and elevated symmetrically, meaning one side is not higher or lower than the other. All the way across the roof of her mouth, it is evenly elevated. It's not even in where it's supposed to be, it's elevated, it's higher and arched up. Which explains a lot still to this day that she has trouble with. Like having to take tiny small bites of food and liquid. So usually this would mean that during a neurological exam, they look at the soft palate and the uvula, and when you open your mouth and say ah, they can see that it's shaped and lifted evenly when you open your mouth and say ah. This would usually be a normal, healthy finding, but with Gypsy it's not when you go along with everything else that the document states. Also, if you notice what we have highlighted in purple and teal, it was Gypsy stating in the operating room when they were giving her Botox injections that they were helping at first and then they weren't helping anymore, and she was having trouble with drooling and choking and coughing again. Her mom was not in the operating room with her. Okay, so her mom could not have made the doctors do anything. So Gypsy, no, you cannot sue the doctor, and it's not because of what you and your little followers say because of the statute of limitations are up. It's because the doctor did do the testing needed to do these procedures. Why do you think no lawyer will touch this case? Like we've said before, there would be plenty of money to make in a medical malpractice case. But you, Gypsy, do not have a case. Simple as that. We also know from your medical records that you had pooling of saliva during your sleep study. You know, Gypsy, the extremely non-invasive test that you wanted your mom to stay with you for. This picture right here that a lot of people, especially, the producers and stuff in the documentaries, used to show how so medically abused Gypsy was. This is just simply electrodes taped to Gypsy's head to measure brain waves and brain activity and things like that during her sleep study. That's it. It's just some tape and some wires that are just laying on her head, like nothing is going into her body or anything like that. It's extremely non-invasive. But wonder why you wanted your mom to stay with you so badly if she was so abusive to you. Heck, I know for a fact I would have a huge relief from just one night away from my abuser. She couldn't stay with you, though. She wasn't allowed to. You, Gypsy, had to sleep overnight at the hospital while being watched by doctors without your mother. So she couldn't manipulate the results of that test either. Okay, so we've covered the salivary gland removal and the feeding tube that Gypsy mentioned. Let's move on to other things, as Gypsy put it. Let's look back at her comment for a second. Okay, going to the highlighted part in this comment, or in these two comments, this is the only thing we didn't cover. And there's a reason for that. But Gypsy writes, I remember tests on my kidneys as a young child. Like what, Gypsy? I would love for her to elaborate what types of tests they done on her kidneys. But she just simply says, I remember tests on my kidneys as a young child. My mother would always come into the restroom for when they needed a urine specimen. I remember my mother bringing a safety pin that was pinned to her shirt, and after I would pee in the cup, she would prick her finger and drop a few drops of blood into my urine, then claimed I had blood in my urine due to issues with my kidneys. Okay, again, this is another example of her making a false symptom. Gypsy, you keep saying your mom's making all these false symptoms, but we keep finding more and more and more evidence in your medical records of the doctors and nurses and everyone that's documenting everything going on other than your mom, saying that you Gypsy Rose Blanchard said this. Gypsy herself states. Gypsy stated. Gypsy said. So it was you that was saying all this. So who had this factitious disorder? You, Gypsy, in our opinions, but let us know what you think. Michelle85 on TikTok, who is a great content creator. If you're on TikTok and you want to follow her, she's posts very interesting things all the time. Posted this clip of Becca Scoop's video. This is very important though. Take a look at this clip right here. Now, we don't care for this woman too much because she is allegedly an expert in Munchausen syndrome by proxy, or now what's called factitious disorder imposed on another. Yet she's been in documentaries of gypsies saying that Dee Dee absolutely had this mental illness when she didn't. We know that she didn't.
Article talked about a mother who had her 4-year-old daughter evaluated and hospitalized many times for urinary tract infections. And they finally figured it out when they got a urine specimen that was loaded with red blood cells and bacteria. They typed the red blood cells in the urine, and it wasn't the little girl's blood type. It was the mother's blood type. And it turns out the mother had been putting her own menstrual blood into her daughter's urine specimens.
There you go. There you
go. Article.
Do you believe Dee Dee was putting blood in Gypsy's urine saying she had kidney infections. I mean, just why? Why would she do that, Gypsy? If you had an infection, they simply would have given you an antibiotic, treated it, and done. That's it. So, nothing for your mom to lie about, in my opinion. It's not something that would have been invasive, so to speak, for you to claim your mom had factitious disorder imposed on another. We also have never seen anything in her medical records indicating a kidney infection. So, like Becca Scoops said, there you go. That explains that. Also, what this woman said, and by the way, Gypsy posted this woman's clip over on her TikTok, and she's now taken it down, I believe, the last time we checked. But Gypsy had this woman's video talking about this exact thing right here, this exact clip posted onto her TikTok. But not only that, a finger prick is going to be considered, quote, clean blood, okay? Whereas this woman that this other woman, she's not talking about Dee Dee in this clip, but this woman is talking about someone else, and it makes no sense because this woman is talking about another mother who is putting her own menstrual blood into her daughter, her little girl's urine specimen. What Gypsy doesn't understand about this clip and this story is they found out about this because there was bacteria from the menstrual blood, and they tested that, and they were able to find out, easily that it was the mom's menstrual blood, okay? Not blood from the little girl. Not running, DNA tests and all that, just simply testing the bacteria from it. Okay, they were able to determine that it was the mom's menstrual blood because it wasn't a, quote, clean blood sample, a prick from the finger. It wasn't blood like that. So here Gypsy is posting this story trying to say, oh, my mom pricked her finger and done this, and tried to claim that I had kidney infections and that's why I had blood in my urine. Like, stop it. Stop it, Gypsy. That makes no sense at all whatsoever. Again, there was bacteria in this little girl's urine sample because it was her mom's unclean menstrual blood, the bacteria from it. I mean, seriously, Gypsy, your mom did not benefit or gain anything that we can see from you being an ill child and having the 1q21.1 microdeletion, which you didn't even know you had until you were an adult. She was simply taking care of you and trying to find out what was wrong with her little girl as any mother would. Trying to give you anything and everything that your little heart desired. Anything you wanted to make you happy, to make her little girl who she loved so unconditionally and truly, she tried to give you anything that you wanted to make you happy. Even down to Disney World, where guess what? You were an adult pretending to be a child with autism and planning the unaliving of your mom that you were hugging right here. You knew good and dang well when this picture was taken that you were already planning her unaliving. The unaliving of Dee Dee was in the works at this moment when this picture was taken. Also, another weird fact about this picture, right before this, Gypsy had her picture taken with the wand. She's got her little Harry Potter cape on. That's what the black cape is that she has on. And before this, she had a wand in her hand, and they had like a little photo booth thing set up where she held the wand over like a cauldron, and she was waving the wand over the cauldron and looking at the camera, smiling. Yeah, that pretending to look and be a child, but not only a child with autism. And Ken actually has that picture framed, which we've shown on our channel before, but we showed it a while ago, like it was back last year sometime when we showed it to y'all. But Ken has that picture framed of Gypsy on his mantle. Yeah, and that's a little odd, is it not? I think we actually showed it in the video, is Ken infantilizing Gypsy? Because at that time we were looking into that. But Gypsy actually acts infantilized herself. She likes to infantilize herself. And she loves to be treated that way, as one of you recently pointed out in the comment section of our video. I know to some this video may have been a bit boring, but we still got that all of you... I'm sorry, y'all, I cannot speak. We know that this video may have been a little bit boring to some people, but we still hope that all of you enjoyed it. It's also extremely important to us and so many others to continue putting the truth and facts out, because there are still people falling for the BS story that Dee Dee put Gypsy through all types of abuse, particularly medically. Like Bailey Sarian, for example, which we're going to get into in a video coming up, and her possible affiliation with the Blanchards. If you don't know who Bailey Sarian is, type it in on YouTube. She's a YouTube content creator who has millions of subscribers. I'm sure many of you have heard about her recent video on Gypsy, but she done one years ago as well. And we're going to be talking about that in a video coming up soon. So if you're not, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on so that you don't miss it. Again, thank you so much to our channel members, and thank you so much to all of our subscribers. We truly love and appreciate every single one of you. Without all of you, we wouldn't be here today. So we greatly appreciate all of you being a part of our family and channel so very much. If you're not already, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, sharing, hitting the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our videos. And please leave your thoughts and opinions about everything we talked about in the comment section down below, and we'll be conversating with you like always. And we would greatly appreciate it so very much. We honestly would. Also, thank you so much for those people that are hyping our videos. We've seen where it's not an option for some people, and I don't know why that is. YouTube is doing this as an experiment, so all we can really say is it's YouTube at this point in time, because this whole hype thing is an experiment that they're doing. They just simply let the content creators know that they were going to be doing it, and that there's a leaderboard. That's pretty much all the information they gave us. So some people have had the chance to hype and then no longer see it anymore. And then sometimes it'll come back after a week. Sometimes it won't. But if you are able to hype and you do, we can see it. And we do appreciate that very much. So thank y'all for that. We hope y'all have a good night. We'll see y'all in the next one. Always remember, the best is yet to come. And we hope y'all have a good night. And God bless. Bye.